Everybody wants to be successful in life, but only very less number of people get an opportunity to feel the bliss of success. So through this life video, Lifology is trying to decode success. We have Mr. Sean Chappel with us. Sean Chappel has two prestigious positions to talk to you. One is, Sean is a former Royal Marine Commando and a polar explorer now. Two great professions he could experience. Sean will be talking from his experience and his expertise about how to be successful. This life video is trying to decode the secret formula to be successful in this world. I'm sure, being the best young adults in this world, you will be able to get the best message from Mr. Sean and can enrich yourself and equip yourself to feel the bliss of success and to be a part of that micro minority who is living the happiest lives in this world. Now let's start with Sean and try to understand what makes some people really successful. Sean, you have two fantastic things with you. A Royal Marine Commando who completed the longest and the toughest training program in the world. Second, polar expedition. Everybody wants to do these two. So we just want to know from you, all the people who are watching this video, what made you successful in these two toughest professions in the world? What are the factors which you believe made you successful to be successful in these two stuff? What do you think?
Very interesting question, and it's something that I've looked at and studied for quite a while myself. So the Royal Marines training, longest and toughest basic training in the world, 50% pass rate, so very difficult. My polar expeditions, I'll talk about my South Pole shortly, 97% fail rate. So both of these careers I embarked on have got a very high rate of failure.
Correct.
So why was I successful when there was countless other individuals who were as motivated as I was, who were probably as prepared and planned as maybe I was, but what made me different and made me more successful? And I think the first bit is probably passion. I think I was very passionate about both those areas and still am now. So I think when you're very passionate about an area, then you're more likely to commit more time, more energy into pursuing and achieving that goal. I think, what's they say, 10,000 hours to become an expert in a subject. So I think if you have that passion to pursue your dream, your goal, then you will likely live and breathe that through most of your working day. And even in your downtime and at weekends, you'll probably be doing something about that particular topic because you're passionate about it.
So it's more about, so the 2 points you said very now, it's about being passionate and try to pursue what you're passionate about. Second is about planning. Yes. So these two things become the foundation of success, you understand, correct?
Yes, certainly,
okay.
Yeah.
So
I think, sorry, go on.
No, go. Okay.
So I think if you've got the passion, that's the start point. So you're moving in the right direction. But if you don't have the planning, then the risk is with your passion, you may just sort of meander and take a very long way round to reach your goal. It may not be very structured.
Correct.
So I think it's also important you've got to shape that within some kind of plan where you can pull in your passion and you can direct it so it is going towards your end state.
And when we talk about passion, the tricky thing is both the careers you pursue, a Royal Marine, a Marine Commando, or on the other side a polar explorer, can easily create a fancy in the mind of a person. I wanna be one like that. So that kind of a fancy attitude and the core passion, how do you want to differentiate it? It's like a quick interest and a passion. How do you differentiate it?
I think in terms of differentiation, you will probably experience that yourself. So you may sort of dip your toe into a certain area, and we've all maybe taken up a hobby or passion, and we said, yeah, I've got a bit of an interest, that seems interesting. And sometimes you don't discover that that's where your passion lies until you've actually dipped your toe into the water and you've sampled it. So sometimes you need to have the courage to take that first step, and then when you take that first step on that path, you may then discover this is where my passion lies, or you may take a couple of steps in and feel this is not really for me. Okay. So the key is you've got to be adventurous. You've got to be open to opportunities and not, if something comes your way, not just dismiss it, think, well, yeah, I'll have a go. This may be something.
Yeah. So all the people who are watching this video now, the live fair in Lifology, are our exclusive viewers for this video. So they really want to know, because all of them are trying to build up a profession for them, trying to get them to some destinations. So how exactly they can explore themselves to see what is their passion? Because they are 13 years, 14 years, 15 years, maximum of 18 years. So how can they explore and understand what is my core passion?
Yeah, it's being open to opportunities, it's being exposed, and it's like the spotlight being opened. People don't know what they don't know. So it's things like this program you're running. It's opened their eyes and their awareness, so they have that visibility of what else is out there. So for my expeditions, I always encourage my prospective team members, I'll send them a reading list so they can read about different expeditions, different leaders. So the more you read, the more you expose yourself to, the more you take opportunities to get involved, then your sphere of understanding grows. So you then become aware of, actually, these are the potential courses of action I can take, the careers I can pursue, and hopefully one of those will resonate with you, and you think, oh, that's sparking some interest, and you may find that's where your passion lies.
So is it like explore the world around and try to understand what are the options over there, and with which are options you can find yourself there, explore more and more, try it more and more, and if the interest continues, that can be your passion.
Most certainly.
Is it likewise?
Yeah. So it's that approach you can take to another level, where tools like psychometric profiling tools. So there's lots of tools out there now where you can do a relatively short self-psychometric profile, and then from that will help you give a bit more self-awareness of how you are as an individual, because you may not be the person where you take that time out to do a bit of self-reflection. So there's psychometric profiling tools that can help do that for you. So you could go through this process, read that, and that may highlight for you, and then the light bulb comes on and you think, oh, okay, that makes sense now, why I tend to enjoy myself more when I'm involved in these kinds of activities, and I struggle in these kinds of activities because your passion, your natural work preferences is more aligned towards a certain direction.
How intense and deeply you use psychometric analysis and profiling for your expedition, or building your team for expedition and profiling your people? So how intense you'd use that?
So for all my expeditions, all my team are profiled. They complete the psychometric profile. And what I say to them when we complete the profile is, don't read it yourself. Share it with somebody who knows you well, so be that maybe your partner, a close friend, your parents. Have them read that profile first and see what their response is.
Okay.
And what I've found is most say, wow, that is spot on, that is you. So I think then straight away you can accept that profile more readily, because if someone else has read it, said that describes who you are. So how I use that in my expeditions is I've always recognised that everyone is different. We all see the world through a slightly different lens. We all have a slightly different perspective on how we see the world and how we see events around us. And in terms of developing yourself or your team, if you're able to respect those individual differences, and the next stage is actually how you maximise the potential of those differences, then as a team you can then perform a lot better. So we use a very colourful wheel, and we have that on our expedition jackets, and that acts as a visual reminder. So when we're looking at other team members, it reminds us that everyone is different and we all see the world slightly differently.
Interesting. So it is about understanding your passion, explore it more and fix it, then plan it properly. So these are the 2 points we said, whereas we can use exploration and psychometric profiling activities to understand the passion. So once this is set, the passion is set and the planning is going on. So do you see any critical factors we can torpedo the entire activities, which can be a hinder or which can be a barricade on my journey towards success?
Yeah, most certainly, and that's it. Because you've got the passion, you've got the plan, you've done your psychometric profile, so you've done self-reflection. That doesn't automatically mean you will achieve success, and you have to accept that on your path to your goal, there will be setbacks, there will be hurdles, there will be barriers to overcome. That is natural and it should be expected.
Cool.
And
Go ahead.
And the key thing is is having that ability to try to preempt those barriers, and the next stage is then how to then overcome them.
Great. So when I was talking to you even before multiple times, I could understand the three main factors which you believe as a hinder, as a barricade on the journey towards success is really interesting, because it's a great revelation at all. So that, for our children, for our students, the young adults who are watching this video would be curious to understand what are the three factors, I would say maybe a triangle of three problems, which can be a hinder on our journey towards success. It would be great if you can talk about those 3 points.
Yes, certainly. So this came about when I looked at my South Pole journey, and I was setting out to do a 2,500 kilometre ski to the South Pole and back. More men have walked on the moon than have done that journey. And when I did my research, there was a success rate of 3%.
3%.
So 97% of those expeditions that set out to do a return ski to South Pole had failed. So what my focus was not look at those 3%. What I was interested in is why were those 97% not successful? So I'm sure those teams were equally passionate about achieving their goal. They'd probably done a degree of planning, they'd done preparations, but why did they not succeed? Was there any common factors of their failure? Because for me, the important thing is trying to drill in is what are the causes of failure, so we can try and prevent those. And what I was able to do was sort of group them into 3 categories, and these are the 3 we spoke about earlier: ignorance, arrogance, complacency.
Ignorance, arrogance, and complacency.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So if we look at the first one, so ignorance, these were the expeditions that didn't really understand the nature of the challenge they were setting out to do, and didn't really understand the training, the commitment, the preparation they would need to put in beforehand, before they even land in Antarctica to achieve success. So these were really, because they were ignorant of what they were going into, they didn't really understand what that would require. They didn't invest the right level of training, they didn't invest the right level of time and commitment. And these expeditions generally failed fairly on in their quest to reach the South Pole. The second one, arrogance, and I would say these were the expeditions and those individuals that felt we don't need to spend all this time because we know it already. And this may have been because they'd been skiing 5 years before. No, I'm an athlete, I can pick up skis, I can go and do this. And one example on one of my trips to the North Pole, so when you're going to the North Pole, it's clearly very cold, -40. All of your supplies you're putting in a sledge behind you. So that was a 55-day journey, so you have 55 days of food, fuel, supplies, that's all in your sledge which you pull behind you. And a key factor on any polar journey is you have to fuel the body. So when you're pulling a sledge that's the weight of a baby elephant, and you're pulling that for 12 hours a day at -40, so a tremendous workload on the body, and you need to consume between 8,000 and 12,000 calories a day. So when you look at your daily food, the optimum is 1 day's food will weigh 1 kilogram. So that gives you the right balance. If it's not too heavy, you've got to have longer to walk to the pole, but it's got an optimum weight. And research has also shown that if you can make that content 50%, so this is 50% of the overall diet composition, to be fat, then you're going to get close to your 8,000 or 12,000 calories, because fat has more kilocalories per gram than carbohydrates, protein. So there's the background. So one expedition when I was up in the North Pole were setting out to reach the North Pole, and when I saw their food, they had big lumps of fat. So 1 kilogram of food, but 500 grams of a lump of solid fat. And I said
50%.
50%.
50%.
And I said, you've got a lot of fat there, that's quite a high content. And the guy said, well, the normal is 50% of your daily intake is fat. I said, there's 50% of the overall, every item, all food items have a degree of fat. You need to calculate every food item and then work out your overall percentage. So clearly very ignorant of what he was going to embark on, had read something somewhere but had not really fully understood it.
Yeah.
That expedition set out. They also didn't understand that because you're walking on the Arctic Ocean, so the North Pole is in the middle of the Arctic Ocean, that freezes for 3 months of the year. And what you've actually got is an Arctic Ocean which is seawater. So on top of it, you've got a lot of sea ice, which has got a very high salt content. So you don't carry water on the journey, you will scoop up the snow, melt that in your pan, so that gives you the water to drink and make your food. But you need to be very careful when you scoop that snow that you don't dig too deep, because then you'll get the highly salt concentrated snow and ice. And that can obviously cause lots of problems if you're eating contaminated water. So a few days into the expedition, they set off their emergency beacon. They then had to launch a rescue mission to pull that team out. And when we met the team, they said they're big blocks of fats they couldn't melt because it was taken too slow. And they said all their food was contaminated because every time they would melt the snow and add the food in to cook it, they said it tasted like gasoline. And that was because they were taking snow too deep from the snowpack. So an example there of how ignorance caused an expedition. Then these expeditions are not cheap. My South Pole was $500,000 to launch. How they can fail very early on if you're ignorant and don't
just because of such a reason.
Yeah.
Just because of such a reason of ignorance, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.